In thousands of communities across the state of Maine, places like this, public libraries exist in very small towns, communities of just a few thousand people. Why do they exist? They don't exist just to share their structure, the building itself. They have content. They have books. These books matter. And it's not just the fact that there are pages, and it's not just the number of pages. The words matter. The ideas matter. The content matters. This week we're considering not just structure, but the content of social relations in online information. And it turns out there are ways of analyzing that content that get at that meaning and still find patterns in it that tell us something about how people communicate online, how people relate to each other online, and what messages they're trying to send.
Hello, this is James Cook of the University of Maine at Augusta, and I'm creating this video for social network and analyzing social media courses. In this course, we're thinking about the content of social media networks and analyzing that content. To date, in the Analyzing Social Media course, we've been thinking about the structure of the social relations, the sociograms, the network graphs, the matrices that describe the pattern of connections that people make online. But that's not all people intend to do when they get involved with social media websites. They don't just plan to make connections. They plan to do something with that connections. They have something to say. What is it that they want to say, and what's the meaning of it? What are the patterns in that meaning? Because yes, you can analyze content just as you can analyze structure. And as I hope to show you today, sometimes there's even a little structure in that content. There is structure to our meaning, and being able to see that is just as important as being able to understand who is communicating with whom. One great tool for unpacking patterns in the content as well as the structure of social media is NodeXL. This is a plugin to Microsoft Excel. It's created by the Social Media Research Foundation, which is in turn funded directly by Microsoft. So as you already know, you can download this from nodexl.codeplex.com. And as you also know, it's possible to use a number of spigots, as they're called, to import data directly from Twitter. So we've done this previously. I'm going to go through this quickly, look at some of my other videos if you need review, but I'm going to head to the Twitter search network, and I'm going to want to search for MEPolitics, a hashtag. I'm going to want to modify that by saying I want to do that for the last week, since 10/24/2013, and I want to look for replies, mentions, and tweets that are not replies or mentions to others. I want to add a tweet column to the Edges worksheet so I can look at the content of the tweet regarding MEPolitics, Maine politics, in the last week. And I want to be able to expand URLs. These are shortened ones. It goes to the shortening service and it says, tell me the actual full URL, uniform resource locator, the name of the web page that is being referred to. So now I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to take a brief amount of time for me to get this information, and then we'll continue. Okay, so that took about 10 minutes time to get a lot of information, which is really impressive if you think about it. How much information? Information about 2,728 tweets. We have 2,730 rows, subtract 2 for the two headers. 2,728 communications. Each of them, if we look at the Edges tab, contains a tweet. Each of them is a communication with 140 characters of text. And each of those is impassioned in its own way. So how do we begin to understand that much content? We have to process it in some way. We can't understand, well, what is 2,728 times 140 characters? It's a lot. That's 382,000 characters of text. You have to be able to process it. You can't read it directly unless you expend a lot of energy and time. I'm going to show you some very quick tools that allow you to get a bead on the general patterns in the content of this social media. The first is to take a look at some of the automatic measurements and metrics that are available in NodeXL. These are top 10 lists. The second is going to be something called a semantic network, which is a description of the connections between words, the co-occurrence of words in tweets. And the third is a hashtag network, looking at the core description of the subject matter of a tweet, a Twitter post. That's what a hashtag is. And when there's more than one hashtag, which hashtags are used together? I don't know the specific answer for this particular network, but I'm going to hope to show you how to go about measuring that. Now, the first thing we're going to want to do is to create a picture of this network of interacting nodes so that we can get the content patterns out in greater detail. To do that, we're going to look at groups. We're going to group by cluster, and a cluster is a set of individuals that are interacting more often with one another than with other individuals. So I'm going to create some groups. Then, and how many groups do we have? Wow, we have 44 groups. Okay, and I'm going to organize them according to Spring Embedding, a visualization form that we spoke about earlier, in which nodes that are connected are brought together, nodes that are not connected are pushed away from each other. And I'm going to head in the graph option of the NodeXL ribbon. Under layout options here, I'm going to select the option to lay out each of the graphs groups in its own box and sort the groups by box size. When I do that, I notice that there's a lot of cross-communication, but that there are a small number of groups who are all communicating with one another. Under graph options, if I want to make that chaos look a little bit more systematic, I can bundle them. And now I can start to see the pattern of communications between groups. That's great. That's a social network pattern. But we want to look at content patterns. To do that, I'm going to head up to Graph Metrics. And I'm going to look at a few items. Twitter search network, top items. Top items. Okay, and that has options. Okay, well, I'm not going to, we could add additional top items. I don't need those options right now. And what I'm really interested in right now is words and word pairs. To look at that, we need to go to the Edges worksheet, and we're going to take a look at the tweet itself. I'd like to be able to count that by group, which means that I want to get top 10 lists of words, word pairs, and other items. I'll show you in a moment, not only for all users, but for particular groups, some of which are large and some of which are very small. Finally, you'll notice that there's an option to skip words. These are really common words: the, of, in, to, but, okay. And those are not words that themselves have meaning. So we're going to say, let's skip these words and not count those. Okay. And we're also going to skip words and word pairs that only occur once. We're going to look for ones that occur more than once, the word pairs that occur at least twice. I'm going to add a few skip words. ones like RT for retweet, MT for modified tweet. We don't really need to know that that's what's happening here in order to look at the content. Those are process words. And now I am ready to hit OK. We're going to have a pause again. This is going to take a little bit of time. I'll tell you how much, but we'll pause the video so you don't have to sit here and wait for that. And that didn't take long, just a few minutes, but here we are again. We notice we still have the same edges. We still have the same vertices. How many people conversing to do that? The many thousands of tweets. Well over 500 of them. What are they saying? What are they referring to? To find that out, we're going to look at the bottom and we're going to scroll through until we find Twitter search network top items. And this is really cool. So what it shows us is the top URLs in the tweet, in the entire graph of among all the tweets. What are the top? Well, we can scroll over to take a look and find out. The top answer has to do with a particular document referring to Saving Mila movement, which is a social movement of people who are interested in a particular custody battle and are using the hashtag #MePolitics in order to publicize that. I'm going to remain agnostic about the merits or demerits of that particular movement and just remain neutral on that. But note that this hashtag is being dominated by that. How many times has that document been referred to by people using the #MePolitics hashtag? 37 times. Okay. 2 other Twitter posts are being referred to and linked to directly. What are the other URLs or web pages that are being referred to? Times Record, Canada Free Press, budget.senate.gov, United States Senate Budget Committee, and particularly are referring to a committee hearing. The next 3 references are from the Bangor Daily News, and finally, a description of a web page from Maine Dems, the Maine Democratic Party. Those are particular web pages. We can also look down at the particular domains, more general domains, which is websites, not just particular web pages. And the Bangor Daily News comes to the top. Twitter is second. Then the Portland Press Herald website is third. The document website containing the Mila Movement's document is next. The Times Record and the Sun Journal, 2 newspapers, occur next. The Senate Gov, the Maine Wire, which is a politics discussion site, and As Maine Goes, another politics discussion site, and Google making the bottom of the top 10. These are descriptions of what's going on with web pages and websites in the entire set of people who are tweeting using the hashtag #MainePolitics in the last week. But there's more, because we can scroll over to the right here and find the same results excuse me, for particular groups. Each of these sets of individuals, of nodes, interacting nodes here within a box is a group. It's a cluster. And they may be talking about different things. They certainly are referring to different URLs, to different web pages. Here we have the People's View, Why Losing Your Junk Insurance is Good. The Maine Wire, with Teachers Union is happy with Obamacare. Austerity or Vibrancy. Media ignoring Dems' war on women. And State Welfare, Moody Economics. Okay. So this is what Women in Congress Really Got Done. Huffington Post article by Cynthia Dill. The second group is talking about something different. Another completely separate set of web pages. A Times Record web page. Carpenters' daughters don't usually run for the United States Senate. Turns out LePage's 47% comment was a put down of low-income working people. This is from a blog from the Bangor Daily News, and so on and so forth. Something from the Undercover Porcupine blog of the Bangor Daily News. Okay, and so on and so forth. Even Blog Talk Radio. Is there no way out? So we notice that the set of web pages being referred to is somewhat consistent. Bangor Daily News is there. In the top 10 as main goes, and the main wire is also there, but dailycoast.com is here in group 2 and it's not in group 1. Okay, as is WND, which is a conservative news web page. If we kept going over, we could find these kind of records for all the different groups. And we would note that there were lots of different kinds of web pages being referred to in somewhat separate conversations about one topic, main politics. We can discover more, both for the whole group or for particular groups, for the whole network or particular network, sub-networks, clusters. We could look at hashtags. What are the top hashtags? Well, ME politics is always going to be the top, right? Because in more than 2,200 tweets, ME politics shows up again and again and again. But we know that there are other hashtags that are also being used. P2, TCOT, a reference to conservative politics. Maine, this is the state in which it is in. Unite Blue, a Democratic reference. OP Slam, TGDN, Save Mila, CCOT, and MISEN for the main Senate. If you're interested in understanding what it is that people are talking about, you might want to check out these hashtags, find out exactly what they're referring to, because hashtags are so compact that it can be difficult to figure it out all on its own. And then you know what the dominant themes are, the dominant subjects, not just the dominant web pages being referred to. And you can also look in different discussions, and you can find that different hashtags are present. Women in politics is present in the second group, but not in the first group. It's not present in the third group, but other ideas relating to the Save Mila movement are. The Tea Party shows up in group 4, but it's not in group 3, and it's not in group 5. So now we can see kind of what's going on in these separate conversations in terms of subject. But we can get much more specific than that. We can look at particular words. What are the top 10 words in the whole graph? What are the top 10 words in each of the groups in the graph? They vary as well. These are patterns in the content. There's also some pairing in the content. When words appear together, that means that there's some relationship between them. And here we have the top word pairs for the entire set of tweets. P2 and main politics appear to be the top. Human and trafficking appear together. This is clearly an issue that's recent and is dominating discussion both in the entire graph and in graph 1. And Bill O'Brien. So here's somebody that we might want to know a little bit more about. So this is the first way that we can begin to understand content and patterns in content. But there's more that is available for us to look at. And for us to think more about content and patterns in the content, I'm going to suggest that we move down and over to a new tab of results and of information that's present for you. This is in word pairs. If you look at columns A and column B in word pairs, you'll notice that, widening them out just a little bit so we can see them, there are the two columns refer to words that appear in the same tweet near one another. So human does appear near trafficking. And how many times does it occur? It occurs 37 times. 37 times the words human and trafficking appear together. Working and later occur 17 times together. Someone later clarified occurs 17 times together. Some of these pairs occur less often together. Sales tax, 8 times together these two appear. Ledge council for legislative council appears 7 times together. We could go down all the way to the end. Someone, well, Troy Jackson, 4 times together, or someone launching re-election, 4 times. So the count indicates the strength of the connection between the words in discussion. And the pairing itself is going to create a tie. If this is a network that we're really talking about here, sets of nodes, which are now words, and ties, which have a strength between them, depending on how often they occur, then why don't we think about showing this as a network, depicting it as a network? How would we do that? We could do that by taking all of these word pairs. How many are there? Well, we're going to find out. It's quite a lot. Even more word pairs than there are tweets, right? There are 5,565 of them. And I'm going to start up a new NodeXL graph entirely and paste those 2 columns in to the vertices columns for vertex 1 and vertex 2, because each word in a semantic network, where semantics refers to the meaning of words, each of those words is itself a vertex that can relate to another word. More than that, I can head back to my original NodeXL page from which we just got this information about Maine politics, and working up, we can copy the count information. Now I'm going to paste that under other columns here, where you can add your own columns. I'll paste that in, and it will correspond, since I haven't reordered anything, to the vertex 1 and vertex 2 in the first 2 columns. And then I'm going to rename that column by just simply typing in it. I'm going to rename it count, so I remember what it's about. All right, what do I have now? I have here 5,566 ties. That's a lot of ties. It's a lot to keep track of. In fact, if we're going to visualize it, it might be too much for us to keep track of. What can we do? Well, we can sort by count from largest to smallest. And then we can start to think about, well, we already did a cutoff in which we're not including word pairs that occurred just once. Well, why stop there? Why not look at the most important word pairs, the ones that are showing up again and again and again in conversation? The meaning of life, meaning life, is not that important to the conversation this week for Maine politics. So let's skip that. Let's skip other ones that just have a count of 2, just appearing twice out of thousands and thousands of tweets. Well, let's keep going, and I notice there's a lot of those that appear just twice. What if we say, well, let's ignore those that occur 2 times, 3 times, 5 times? What if we just include those that occur at least 10 times? This means that they're really popular. So now I've found that point. There are 149 word pairs that occur at least 10 times together. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to say, let's remove all those other ones. Let's take them out. This is very much like filtering out. And I'm actually going to hit the delete key. Now that I've selected them all, I'll hit the delete key and they're gone. They're certainly present in the conversation, but they don't dominate. What I'm about to show is a set of dominant word pairs. Let's look at the graph. Wow, what we see here is that there's one central term. You know what that is. It's ME politics. And branching out from ME politics is a set of other terms, right? There's ME politics, that form branches of words that occur in long lines, one after the other, after the other, after the other, phrases that are uttered over and over again, at least 10 times, and other sets of nodes that create loops where final words like budget and conference occur at the end of different phrases, or phrases that are parts of many different conversations that occur and overlap here in the middle. If you think about it, right, we know that ME politics is going to be present in this semantic network over and over and over again. It has to be. ME politics occurs in every tweet. So whenever there's a word pair, it's going to be there. One way of simplifying this graph and showing the structure of the connections between them is to take ME politics out, just as it's the convention for egocentric networks to remove the reference to the central ego. We're going to take out the reference to the central ubiquitous phrase ME politics. How do we do that? Back here in the columns for edges, we're going to click on the little triangle here that allows us to sort from A to Z alphabetically and take out, by going down to the M's, all of the references to ME politics in vertex 1. I'm going to delete those. And then I'm going to go to vertex 2, and we're going to sort A to Z here. And I'm going to take out all references to ME politics from row 56 to row 82. Now that's going to leave us with 107 other words that appear a lot, at least 10 times in conversation. We're going to remove ME politics. What else can we do then to highlight the structure? We can go back to the NodeXL tab at the top, and we can think about groups of words that are clustering together. So let's create groups for these individual words in relation to each other, creating word pairs. How many different groups are there? 27. 27 sets of highly interacting words, highly related words. I'll head in the graph section of the NodeXL ribbon to Layout and select Layout Options. Select Layout Options, and I want to lay each of those groups out in its own box. Let's not show the box outline this time. Okay. And what's one final thing I can do? I can go to the Vertices tab, and I can label create a label for all of these vertices. The label is copied over from the vertex column. Control C is for copy, Control V is for paste. I'm going to delete the node for ME politics. Now I'll have labels, I'll have groups, they'll be separated, and let's see what we find. Okay. We have color-coded groups. They overlap a little bit, so we might want to clarify. Places where two words stand on top of each other, we can move those words out away from one another so we can read everything that's going on here. Okay. So for instance, Bellows in Shenna Bellows is running for the United States Senate, is separated from Think and Tank, from Main Care and Rides. OPGDN and OPSLAM. OPSLAM are separated from record and union. Income and gov separated. Low and income separated again. Computers are good at initiating a visualization, but we always seem to be best at finishing them up, fixing the little problems that a computer doesn't seem to be able to manage on its own, like a lack of overlapping words. Okay, and we're pretty good now. With just about a minute of visualizing work, moving a few nodes around, we now can be able to look at all these subjects to think about phrases that are a subject of discussion. Which phrases are the subject of more discussion and of less discussion? Because remember, if we go to the edges section here, we know that some occur, if we sort from largest to smallest, some occur just 10 times together, others occur 41 times together, quite a bit more. We can visualize that by going to our autofill option and under the Edges tab, selecting Edge Opacity. Opacity is how transparent, that's low opacity, right, is high transparency, how much you can see through that tie. Something that is highly opaque is solid. You're going to see it. It's bold. And so I'm going to select in Options that the smallest number, meaning that a word pair occurs less often, is going to have a very low edge opacity, and that the highest co-occurring pairs are going to occur with a high edge opacity. They're going to be darker. I'll autofill that. Okay. And a little bit of rearranging. Now I have some dark lines. Via and Bangor Daily News describing how how certain news stories are tweeted and where they're tweeted directly from the Bangor Daily News website. That's very common, whereas low and income as a word pair is a relatively light line. It occurs much less often than Via and Bangor Daily News. So now I have, from thousands of tweets and thousands more word pairs, a simplified distillation of the subjects that are being talked about. This is a way for us to get a very clear, simple handle that can be presented on one page in a paper or an article describing the themes of this week in online discussions of Maine politics. And if you think that matters, then as a subject matter, then that's important. Maybe you care more about the Red Sox and the World Series. Well, you could talk about that too. There are all kinds of subjects that you could consider. This is a way of thinking about the content and distilling all that down into one picture. We can do more. We can take a look not just at any old words, but at the most common words in, the most important words in the graph. Those most important words, self-identified, are the subjects of a tweet. Okay, in this graph, representing so many different tweets, we have lots and lots of hashtags. And if we look at the Edges tab again, we'll notice that there are different hashtags in the tweet that are described. Now, one of them is always going to be ME politics, but sometimes other ones are included as well, like Obamacare, March, and Trainwreck. These are co-occurring hashtags. When they occur together, they tie subjects together for a certain person's tweet. This person writes, apparently the Obamacare fight wasn't as one as thought. Now it won't be implemented till March. LOL, it's a train wreck. Those are highly important subjects that the writer of this tweet, All for Jury, wants people to notice and pay attention to. Why don't we think about the connections between those particular words? Well, to do that, all we have to do is go back to our NodeXL tab, hit Graph Metrics again. Think about words and word pairs again. And this time we're just going to want to collect them for the whole graph. And we're going to look at not the tweet, but the hashtags in the tweet. Okay? And let's obtain that. It might take a minute, but it might be very quick. There we are. So if we look at word pairs, we have a new set of word pairs. But the word pairs now are the hashtags. So I can repeat the process I had for the regular word pairs, now just for hashtags. I can copy the contents of the columns word 1 and word 2, start up another new NodeXL instance, and copy the results over as vertices. Now the hashtags are vertices. They're nodes in our network. I'll head back over and I'll get the count, which goes all the way from a co-occurrence of 50 to a co-occurrence of 2. I'll paste them in other columns in the appropriate spot, and then I'll relabel that column count to remind myself where it is, what it is about. I'll autofill that by opacity. Okay, edge opacity is going to be related to count, and I'll make sure that the smallest number is the least opaque, that is the most transparent, the lightest. Okay, and I'll then create it within Herald Core and Fast Multiscale, Spring Embedding, in layout options. Oh, groups. I have to calculate groups. Group them by cluster. And this is repeating what I did before with word pairs, laying them out in different groups. Finally, in vertices, I'm going to take each of those vertices. How many different hashtags are there? 113, which is a fine number. I don't think I need to scale that down any. I'm going to make sure each of them has a label. And now let's refresh and see what we've got. Wow. Okay, well, clearly, ME politics shows up a lot. Let's remind ourselves to sorting A to Z, right? Because ME politics so dominates, it's hard to see some of the other structures. Let's take ME politics out. Let's just obscure it by removing it. ME politics. Deleting all the instances of that in vertex 1. And now I'm going to go to vertex 2, sort A to Z. And I'm going to look for all occurrences of ME politics and delete those. And in vertices, I'm going to take out the ME politics vertex, the ME politics node. Let's refresh the graph. Okay, and what appears is, again, a little bit overlapping in terms of what's going on, but not too bad actually. Okay, separate out a few of these nodes from one another so we can read them. Let's move ME Dems over here. Boston Strong next to Red Sox. Red Sox appears everywhere this week. And Movember. Bond, separate out from Liban. Let's take ME News slightly away from taxes. And now we have a picture of hashtags that occur next to each other. We can begin to substantively discuss the main themes of thousands of tweets sent out within the last week having to do with Maine politics, some of which move into discussions of national politics, Angela Merkel and the NSA and the FBI, surveillance issues, Maine, child abuse and stop trafficking, and lawyers, CPS for Child Protective Services. Okay, so this is another subject. Child abuse, rape culture, prosecuting, and sex abuse. Another discussion somewhat related to the previous one, but as you can see, it's tied in the hashtag network. Okay, if we look over toward the bottom, TCOT, a conservative hashtag, which is connected to CCOT, another conservative themed hashtag. Okay, so we're talking about now, and then Unite Blue, another partisan hashtag. This is a partisan discussion, very different from the discussion above it, which has to do with the issue of surveillance. And then finally, we have a Red Sox sub-theme in orange. This is a useful way of condensing down a whole lot of content, which then allows you to then dive back in to your original data to look back at what might have been an overwhelming amount of communication, and to be able to look at a few of those examples and understand them in context. I hope this has been helpful. You now have 3 different kinds of visualization and analysis of content that you can engage in. You can use the built-in Graphmetrics tool to look at top 10 lists. You can look at semantic networks for word pairs. You could look at hashtag networks for hashtag pairs. And more than that, you can then return, after having visualized a particular network, and you can return to structure. And you can use Graphmetrics. So for instance, if you just want to do overall graph networks, perhaps you wanted to do betweenness and closeness centrality, we could find out that this hashtag network has a density of 0.0289, or about 0.03. It's 3% full. For every connection that occurs between these hashtags, there are many more that could be there. 97% of the possible connections between hashtags don't occur in this network. It's sparse. We know that looking at vertices, we have now descriptions of the betweenness centrality and closeness centrality of a number of these nodes. And we can look at the ones that are particularly high. Government is one. State crime is even higher. Dirty cops is even higher. Exposed pedos is another, related to the Save Mila movement. So returning to structure allows us to think about which of these particular nodes is really central to the discussion. What are these nodes? Their hashtags, their subjects. What subjects are central to our discussion? And we could even, in turn, going to vertices, make the size be related to perhaps betweenness centrality. And in options, moving from 1.5 to 30. We could begin to visually identify in an immediately recognizable way the main themes of this Maine politics discussion. Okay, we've talked a lot about content today. There are a lot of tools and techniques that you can use. I encourage you to refer back to this video for examples. Follow my example as you work with your particular substantive concern. But do use this in your final course research paper if you're interested in content, and also use it when you think about all the different ways that you can talk about the subjects that we engage in class, uh, including our own course, social media network. Thanks very much for your time, and I look forward to your work.